أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. I'll be subbing in for the brother who was supposed to be here. And when I say substitute, if you have a glass pane that's broken and you replace it with another glass pane, that's a replacement. But if you put a box of cardboard on it just to patch it up, that's a substitute. So that's what you're getting today. But inshallah, we will dive into a couple of things. Alhamdulillah, as-salatu was-salamu ala rasulillah, nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruh, wa nu'minu bihi wa natawakkalu alayhi, wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina, wa min sayyiati a'malina, man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu, wa man yudlil fala hadiya lahu. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu, wa ashhadu anna sayyidina wa nabiyyina wa habibina wa maulana Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Ma ba'd. So inshallah today, I'll talk to you a little bit about the miracle of the Quran. I know we talk a lot about Quran and the miracle of the Quran and what that is, and we talk about exploring it. Perhaps it's not a bad reminder to just talk to you a little bit about how when the Quran talks to us, speaks to us, and invites us to invest in it, to investigate it, what are some of the very amazing things that we just find in the text of the Quran, which connect to everyday life and which connect to science and which connect to just the observations that we make in our everyday life. So I'll probably try to just touch on a few of those as a means to perhaps just remind all of us that it is definitely an opportunity for us to continue to invest and to reflect more into the Quran. So as you know, the name, the Quran itself is a recital. That's what the word Al-Quran means. And the precision of the language of the Quran is a thing of beauty. And it really starts with the very first ayah when it talks about ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ. And the word zalika here is interesting because it is talking about a book and it is talking about that book. So the idea of the book being, and the word being zalika, not haza, is interesting because it means that there's a distance, right? When you talk about this, you talk about something that's here. When you talk about that, it implies a distance. And so zalika, in this case, is talking about the book because the Quran is an oral tradition and a recital. And the recital was here on the earth, sent to the Prophet ﷺ. But we know that the book itself is Allahul Mahfuz with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and there is that distance. So the Quran talks about that with precision of language by saying ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ. And that's just interesting in and of itself, in just the way the precision of the language works in the Quran. And another point perhaps is that the balance and equivalency in the Quran. And we've talked about this, and you've heard it before. There are the words that are mentioned in the Quran with a certain degree of equivalency, which is, again, interesting. Dunya and Akhirah mentioned the same number of times. Hayat and Maut, so Dunya and Akhirah mentioned 115 times. Maut and Hayat are mentioned 140 times. Shayateen and Malaika are mentioned the equal number of times at 88. Men and women, hardship and patience, which go together. So hardship and patience, sabr, are mentioned 114 times. And there are many other examples like that. Refuge from Iblis is mentioned the same number of times as Iblis is mentioned, so about 11 and 11 each. musibah and shukr are mentioned 75 times each. Spending and sadaqah and satisfaction are mentioned 73 times each. So there's a lot of that balance of mention in the Quran of concepts that relate to one another or things that are tied to each other, if you will. A few others. So again, zakah and then barakah are mentioned the same times. The tongue and sermon is mentioned the same time. Hardship, patience, as I mentioned, land and sea are mentioned in the same proportion to what they are actually in terms of percentage of land, if you will. The other aspect of Quran is just its reference to scientific phenomena. There are about 750 verses in the Quran that have some mention of scientific phenomena, which actually is quite amazing if you reflect into it. And for some Muslim writers, the study of science really stems from the harmony and the balance of the universe with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and so the balance between creator and creation. And so a number of writers talk about the signs of Allah, the harmony within the signs of Allah, and indeed, just the fact that it was revealed 1400 years ago, it's quite miraculous that some of these signs are there. So water. In Surah Anbiya, it was revealed, meaning every living thing from water will they not believe. And it was only after the discovery of the microscope that we found that most things are actually created from and made out of or consist of water as a composition, right? We talk about the universe and the Big Bang Theory, which is another piece out there, right? And so again, those who have disbelieved have not considered that the heavens and the earth were a joint entity and we separated them. And of course, as you know, Edwin Hubble in 1929 proposed the Hubble's law, all entities in space, were together and now moving away from Earth. So another phenomenon that was mentioned in the Quran, if you will. And then again, in addition to that, the basis of the Big Bang Theory, right, which stated that around 12 to 15 billion years ago, the universe came into existence from one single hot and dense point due to the expansion of this point. So in 1965, Penzias and Wilson, two astronomers, won the Nobel Prize for the discovery that confirmed the Big Bang Theory. And looking at the verse that was cited above, acknowledging Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows better, it remains astounding that the Quran already revealed that the heavens and the earth were a joint entity and that we separated them. So again, these are just pieces and parts of reflection that were revealed 1400 years ago, and mankind and science is now catching up to these facts and they're coming to light. Then there's another theory called the Big Crunch theory, right? So again, in Surah Anbiya, the day when we will fold the heavens like the folding of a written sheet for the records. As we began the first creation, we will repeat it. That is a promise binding upon us. Indeed, we will do it. So again, that fits with the theory of Big Crunch, which talks about how the universe will be pulled back into the black holes and again form a tiny mass. So all these things that are moving away from the earth, eventually they'll lose their velocity, they'll stop, and they'll start coming back. And that will be the Big Crunch. So that is another piece that was predicted by the scientists and how the universe may end, another prevalent theory. So again, like many others, it's based on Einstein's theory of general relativity, that the Big Bang describes how the universe began, and the Big Crunch describes how the world will come to an end. So again, miraculous that 1400 years ago, all these were mentioned and alluded to in this amazing book, and now we are catching up to those in the 1900s and the 2000s. Embryology. So in Surah Al-Mu'minun, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, we created man from an extract of clay. Then we made him as a drop in place of settlement firmly fixed. Then we made the drop into an alaqa, and then we made the alaqa into a mudgha. And and science has only now proven this with the help of the latest technology. So it was Professor Emeritus Keith Moore, who is one of the world leading scientists in the field of anatomy and embryology, who said, it is clear to me that these statements must have come to Muhammad from God, because almost all of this knowledge was not discovered until many centuries later. So an interesting testament from someone who perhaps is not of the, has the benefit of scientific observation, making these statements. Another is the sky's protection. In Surah Anbiya, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, And we made the sky a protected ceiling, but they, from its signs, are turning away. It's a scientific fact that sky, with all of its gases, the ozone layer, protects the earth and life that is present on it from the harmful rays of the sun. If there was no protective layer, no ozone layer, life on earth would cease to exist, and we all know that today. But it's just amazing that all of these signs, again, remain in our book, which is indeed miraculous. Another example is the mention of iron. And the mention of iron is mentioned in a way, the language that is used is that we sent down iron, that iron was sent down to earth. And so a hadith, it is written that we sent down iron with a great inherent strength and its many benefits for humankind. And according to Wawat, iron is not natural to the earth. Scientists state that billions of years ago, the earth was struck by meteorites. It was within these meteorites that iron was present, and that's how it was introduced into the core of the earth. And that we have that available to us. So the Quran is saying that has already enlightened us, right? That this fact, we sent down iron with great inherent strength, because the Quran also mentions iron as a source of strength. So that's another aspect of where science continues to uncover what the Quran had already stated. Another phenomenon, the meeting of the seas in Surah Rahman, right? So, مرج البحرين يلتقيان بينهما برزخ لا يبغيان. So again, the meeting of the seas, meeting side by side, yet there is a barrier between them. And if you actually see where salt water or brackish water meets sweet water, and I'm a big fisherman myself, I do a lot of fishing, so I see this all the time. I'm heading down to Florida for the holidays, and I see it, where the sweet water and the canal water meet the brackish ocean water. And you can kind of see that there is a separation between the two waters, even though they're touching each other. And the ecosystems and the wildlife are very different between the two. And that's mentioned in Surah Rahman. So that is sort of my focal point today, is to just talk to you a little bit about some of the amazing language of the Quran, the structure of the Quran, the precision of words in the Quran, and for all of us to maybe think about how we can go a little bit deeper and reflect into some of these pieces, to also then think about how we get some knowledge, but also some hidayah out of it. Bismillah. So I know that we are a few months away from the month of Ramadan, and that's typically where we ramp up our activities around the Quran. We set our goals for the month of Ramadan. But I think that, it's never too early to start, but also it's just good for all of us to continue to think about how we engage with the Quran. They said the Quran speaks to you. And I think that that's very true for, and I think many of us have experienced that miracle where something might be on your mind, a worldly affair may be on your mind, it's related to your work, it may be to family, related to health. And we open the Quran, and there's always a verse that provides some kind of knowledge, perspective, comfort. And then that's the experience that we've all had with the Quran. And the idea is to continue to just engage with the book and to think through what are the amazing things that we can still continue to get from it? Because the Quran itself is an ocean, and we are only looking to extract whatever little we can out of it in the short lives that we have over here. So Inshallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue to give us the ability to reflect in the book and to continue to gain knowledge and guidance from it, and for that to become a sadaqah for us and for those around us. Ameen. Ya Rabbal Alameen. إن الله ملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون وأقيموا الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة وقد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
Inshallah, let's inshallah, let's straighten our rows. Can everybody in the back hear me okay? Yes. Okay. Allahu Akbar.